Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fourth termly webinar from Greener Kent Schools. It's great to have you all along here, whether you're live this afternoon or watching back on the recording. So my name is Suzie Hammond, and I'm the Engagement and Behaviour Change Officer for the Environment and Circular Economy Division in Kent County Council, and I'm leading on the Greener Kent Schools programme. So please take some time to introduce yourselves on the chat and with your name and your school or organisation so that we know who's here with us today. A little bit of housekeeping. So the webinar is being recorded and all of the slides and links will be sent through afterwards. Cameras and microphones have been switched off for everyone except the presenters, but please add any questions into the Q&A or the chat and we will cover those after all of the speakers, apart from my first speaker, Iona, who will have questions and answers straight after her presentation. So we have a full agenda, so we'll hopefully have enough time to answer everything. Just a little reminder about the programme. Greener Kent Schools is a programme of support to help schools connect with the Department for Education's Sustainability and Climate Change Strategy and is open for all schools in Kent to get involved in. And the aim is to create an engaging and thriving community of school sustainability leads working collaboratively to take climate action within their school communities and beyond. So running order for this afternoon's meeting. So we have the theme of travel this term. So I will be joined by three of my colleagues from within Kent County Council. So Iona will start the presentations and then we'll move on to Katie and then finally Nigel. At the end of all the presentations, I'll be giving a run through of the current opportunities that are available for schools to get involved in. And we'll be joined by another one of my colleagues, Alessandra, who will be sharing about an opportunity for schools to join in with on climate risk assessments. So here's the Greener Kent Schools programme. Hopefully you've managed to create or get started on your climate action plans. This term is all about travel and how you can build that into your action plans. So there's an overwhelming amount of resources out there and I'm here to help you to navigate these and find the right support for you. Schools can join in with the programme at any time along the way and use the programme however they wish. If you aren't receiving the Greener Kent Schools update, then please just fill in the Greener Kent Schools survey form. Link will follow. So for the topic of travel, so for this term, the idea is to gain an understanding of what the carbon emissions are from travel and look into some actions that can be taken as part of your school climate action plan, as well as finding some funding options. So there's been a few events this term. So obviously there's the webinar today. Last week, Tunbridge and Morling Borough Council led a carbon literacy training day for schools within their borough and in the surrounding areas. And then from tomorrow, we are starting our e-waste warriors project in Maidstone, and that will run until the end of term. So travel and especially active travel, there's so many benefits to it. So it improves health and saves money, reduces traffic congestion, increases levels of physical activity and improves air quality. And obviously from a Greener Kent Schools point of view, it will reduce transport carbon emissions as well. So if you have completed your school carbon footprint via the free Count Your Carbon tool, then you may have a school carbon footprint that looks a little bit like this. And you can use the insight from this report to get started and could also complete a travel audit of your school. There's guidelines available on the Count Your Carbon website or after I've given this introduction, Iona will also be sharing details of the KCC Jambusters system, which includes creating a school travel plan. So I'm sharing these ideas to form part of your climate action plan, but as I said, active travel has many multiple benefits. So just thinking about carbon emissions from transport in general. So approximately 29% of the total carbon emissions of the UK come from transport. And this includes road transport, aviation, rail and shipping. Thinking a bit more about the school commute. So it's estimated that 1 in 70 car miles travelled in the UK are part of that school commute. And for schools looking at transport as part of their climate action plan, this would include looking at minibus usage, school trips, and staff and student commuting. I found a nationwide study that was taken in 2021, and that found that some British parents who drive their children to school spend an average of 1 hour and 14 minutes a day during term times on the school run, which is an equivalent per year of 25 days of that year, or within the lifetime of a child attending school between ages 4 to 18, that would be 351 days. So it's a significant part of a lot of people's lives. So there is lots of support available out there. So along with all of the support that you can get from the teams at KCC, and they have links to all of these organisations. There's also Sustrans, who are a charity that make it easier for people to walk and cycle to school, and they lead on the School Streets programme. More about that later. There's Mode Shift Stars, who run a national school award scheme that has been established to recognise schools that have demonstrated excellence in supporting cycling, walking and other forms of sustainable travel. There's Living Streets, who are a UK charity for everyday walking, and Bikeability, the government's national cycle training programme. More on that later from Nigel. And don't forget that if you sign up with Let's Go Zero for a fully funded climate action advisor, they can help you with creating your carbon footprint calculation and also with your climate action plan. So here's a few ideas for your climate action plan in terms of travel. So you could complete a travel audit with your staff and students. You could run an active travel week each term. So on the big terms, so there's one coming up from Sustrans, which is the big walk and wheel, and that's March the 24th to April the 4th. And then Living Streets run the Walk to School week, which is May the 19th to the 23rd. Another idea is to look at your bike and scooter storage to make sure that pupils are encouraged to use those, and look at encouraging lift sharing between pupils or staff. In terms of electric vehicle charging points, so there is currently a government grant for installing these via the Workplace Charging Scheme for state-funded education institutions, and you can get 75% off the cost to buy and install charge points, up to a maximum of £2,500 per socket. This scheme is closing on the 31st of March 2025, so this one does close very, very soon, but hopefully there'll be a follow-on funding scheme after that one. And then finally, looking at reviewing your school trip travel policy to include carbon emissions. So I'm just going to stop sharing and hand over to Iona. So I'll just change that over so that Iona can come in.
Thank you. Thanks, Suzie. Right, let's see if this will work nice and swiftly now. Hopefully you can all see my slides. Yep. Excellent. Okay, so good afternoon and thank you for joining us, everybody. Today I'm going to be chatting to you a little bit about myself, my team, how we sit within Kent County Council, and the plethora of support and resources that we can offer to all schools across Kent should you wish to engage with us, and the ways in which that support and those resources are designed to try and help you promote various elements such as more active travel and also to address some issues at peak times. So initially, just an introduction to myself. You may have already noticed that I am somewhat recognisable, usually by the colour of my hair. It may be any shade of purple through to pink or anything in between. So this is me. As it says on the slide, my career has spanned over 10 years in public sector, and over that time it's very much had a focus on improving community health and of course sustainability. And specifically within Kent County Council, my role has seen me establishing a team that provides support and resources to schools with the specific intention to promote active travel, so more walking and wheeling on the school run, to facilitate more sustainable journeys. So perhaps that could refer to things like EV vehicles, and just to improve footpaths, etc. on your school site, and also to address common peak time issues, as I alluded to a moment ago. So this could be anything like congestion, problematic parking, issues between neighbours and the schools, etc. So that's a little bit about myself and what our team delivers. In terms of where we sit, I think it's fair to say we've probably all had encounters where we've felt passed from pillar to post. So just to be really clear, our team here, we sit within Kent County Council's Highways Department, and specifically within the Road Safety and Active Travel group. So we're able to work very closely with our colleagues in various departments such as highways improvement, road safety, as it says here, and of course my colleague that will speak a bit later, Katie, and her team in Safer Active Journeys as well. But my team is this green team in the middle here. So we are the Active Travel Interventions team. And as I say, we have a branch there that supports schools specifically. Our resources include travel plan support, grant funding, school street schemes, responsible parking toolkit, active travel maps, and quite a bit more. We recently even funded scootability sessions in primary schools across Kent as well. So we do quite a bit of everything. And as you can see at the bottom there as well, if we're not the correct department for you to be chatting to, we also do work very, very closely, and we're happy to signpost to all the other relevant departments that might be useful for your query. So obviously I will go into each of those headings in a little more detail now. So as Suzie mentioned earlier, Jambusters is our system that we refer to. You'll hear us referring to Jambusters quite frequently in our team. And it is essentially just an online travel plan management system. Schools can log in. You can have multiple travel plan coordinators with multiple logins per person. And you can then access some really simple to use templates to help you create your travel plan. And you can also use the system to update that travel plan on an annual basis to save you from having to do a whole document every single year. Our system is quite clever because the template simply prompts you for the information we need and then pulls it through into a fully formatted document. So you don't need to worry at all about having any experience of creating travel plans historically or even knowing what they are. You should just be able to use the template, put in that information that you'll know inside out about your school anyway. And then, as I say, this document is produced, it looks nice and professional, and you can use that to help you and support you in a number of ways. So some of the benefits of having a travel plan in place, because sometimes we do get this question, and I think schools often feel like it's just a tick box exercise, you know, it's just a piece of paper. How will that help us with our issues? And I can completely appreciate that perspective. But what we're trying to help schools to understand is that once you have this document in place, it's really incredibly useful because it captures so much baseline data from which we can then identify other options to explore to help you achieve your goals. So, for example, we capture information such as where pupils are travelling in from, how they travel, same for staff. You'll also have an opportunity within your travel plan to set out what you perceive to be your main issues or challenges in terms of safer active travel to and from the school. And you also have an opportunity as well to set out the limitations of the school. So one thing I see very frequently, especially where there are difficult relationships between the community and the school, is that residents or neighbours of the school might expect school staff to be out there managing the traffic, making it wonderful, and they just feel that the school don't do enough to do that. And often that's absolutely not the case at all. And not to mention, not the remit of the school staff to be out there policing roads and managing traffic. So again, having that sort of politely captured within a travel plan can be really useful just to help a reader to be reminded essentially that the school staff are not there to be abused beyond the school gate, to control parent behaviour beyond the school gate, and so on. So as well as sort of capturing an image of the school's role in all of this, it can then also support you with any highway improvement requests that you wish to put in. So let's say you request a new signalised crossing, or you want extra parking restrictions or anything like that. When you put in that request and it says, you know, this request is near a school or come from a school, our highways improvement team will automatically get in touch and ask me, does this school have a travel plan? What do they say the issues are? What are we looking at? And then we refer back to that baseline data that I mentioned a moment ago. So it can be really helpful in just identifying the need or indeed the feasibility of some of those requests you might have raised. Having a travel plan in place also strengthens your grant funding applications, should you wish to apply for funding, of course. And just generally, it can build better community relationships because it just provides that transparency about what the school is doing, because there is an action plan section. So it highlights everything that you're trying to do as a school to try and tackle issues such as congestion, problematic parking, increasing active travel, or making the area safer outside the school. So again, can just be helpful for residents to understand that there's actually a lot going on, often behind the scenes, that they wouldn't necessarily be aware of otherwise. Through our Jambusters system, schools can also apply for grant funding each year. So not only creating travel plans and updating them, you can also apply for up to £5,000 each year. And that is towards what we call capital or infrastructure improvements. The way that I describe this to people is that if you imagine that you picked up your school, gave it a little shake, upside down, anything that falls out, that generally tends to be revenue. So that could be staff training. It could be cycles and scooters. If it's equipment, it's gone. That's revenue. So capital is anything that's bolted to the ground and not going to move or shake out. So in this instance, in plain English, that might look like EV charging points. As you can see in the pictures, we've got cycle storage, scooter storage. We've also funded things like shower facilities, improvements to on-site footpath, and also on-site bus shelters. I keep mentioning on-site because fundamentally this funding has to be used towards improvements that are on your school premises. Unfortunately, they can't be used towards a zebra crossing on the highway beyond your school gates. Again, if you want any more information about this one, it's all on Jambusters, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. So another scheme that my team looks after is school streets. So these are a very, very popular scheme. You'll see hundreds of them, quite literally hundreds and thousands now across the UK. And they refer to schemes whereby we temporarily restrict motorised traffic outside the school entrance during the peak morning and afternoon periods. So that means that it's open to people who are cycling and walking and wheeling, but ultimately is restricted to general traffic. So that would be parents trying to come as close as possible to the school gates in the morning and afternoon. And importantly, it is open and there are exemptions available for anybody that lives within that school street zone or who accesses their property from within that zone as well. And of course, emergency services are always exempt. These schemes are always introduced on a trial basis. So we use something called an experimental traffic regulation order. And as I say, that just allows us to pop the scheme in, monitor it closely, make sure it's successful before we make any decisions about whether that would remain in place permanently, or indeed whether the school feels this isn't sustainable and we can remove it. So that's just a little bit whistle-stop tour about school streets, really. But again, happy to answer more questions about that specifically. The main thing to note here is that at the moment, our model for school streets in Kent involves the school staff setting up movable barriers each morning and afternoon to facilitate that legislation to restrict motorised traffic. And it also is something that we're only delivering at primary schools at the moment, so just worth bearing in mind. And again, happy to answer any other questions if you have any. Just want to touch quickly upon the responsible parking toolkit. So this is available for both primary schools and secondary schools. We have free resources, so weatherproof banners, flyers, etc. And you can use those however you feel is appropriate for your school to remind parents to park responsibly, give them ideas about parking elsewhere, and just try and keep pushing those messages in a more visual way. Some schools will just pop leaflets in book bags and send them home and pop a weatherproof banners up, whereas other schools take that to the next level and they might create their own parking campaigns at school with their school council, or they might go out and actually have conversations with drivers. Specifically, I'm talking about pupils having conversations with drivers, not staff or adult to adult, because unfortunately, adult to adult, as I'm sure I don't need to tell you all, sometimes results in some conflict. So we do find that it's very well received, though, when it comes from the students themselves to say, we're learning about this, we're really trying to make our environment around our school safer, this is why it's important, here's some information, we're asking parents to park here, here and here, and then walk a short distance to school. So it's more about collaborative conversations rather than telling grown-ups off. There's also the website. All the links for our resources will be at the end of this slide, so you can make a note of them there, and you'll be able to get share best practice. You'll be able to have a look at our online catalogue as well on the website. We also offer active travel resources. So this is something that schools can access once they have a school travel plan set up. This is an electronic resource, but can be printed to create a little pocket-sized leaflet. And essentially on one side, as you can see in the bottom picture, you can add your school-specific information. You might want to talk about, for example, did you know we have scooter storage located near this entrance? Or indeed, you could talk about park and stride locations that you've been trying to promote. And on the other side, we've got the map image, which shows the school and highlights elements such as 5-10 minute walking distances, cycle distances, public rights of way, and all sorts of other icons that you may wish to highlight around your school. The purpose of this resource, again, is just to facilitate and enable parents to sort of make different choices about their school run or mix it up. So sometimes this can be quite nice to launch around National Walking Month or alongside other campaigns just to sort of boost your efforts. So I have tried to whiz through everything. I do apologise, I could have talked for ages about all of our support and resources, but if you do have any key questions, I am more than happy to answer them. And I'm happy to just leave that on the screen for now as well, if you'd like to make a note of that. Oh, have I left it on the screen? No. There we go.
So I can't see any questions in the Q&A or chat at the moment. Thank you very much, Iona. If anyone's got any questions that they want to ask, obviously Iona's left her details there, so feel free to get in touch. So if we then move on to Katie. So Katie, if you'd like to share your presentation.
Has that switched over?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. So as Iona mentioned, I'm Katie Ireland. I work in the Active Travel team. My team's Safer Active Journeys. We do cycle training, which you'll hear more about from Nigel later, pedestrian training, school crossing patrols, walking bus. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is Living Streets Walk Once a Week programme, their walk to school programme. Once you've identified through your travel plan that you can increase walking and cycling to school, it's one method, one sort of project that you could implement to help increase those walking, wheeling and cycling numbers. I'm going to start off with a video because I think the kids say it best. So hopefully this will work with sound.
Living Streets, the UK charity for everyday walking, has a big ambition: that every child that can walks to school. Did you know that at peak times, 1 in 4 cars on the road are on the school run? Unfortunately, the number of cars on the street can make it unsafe for us to walk to school. Today, only 1 in 5 children are meeting recommended physical activity levels, and 1 in 5 children leave primary school obese.
Apart from the fumes, which is bad for the children's health, there's also the danger of a lot of cars.
The safety element of cars pulling up, overtaking each other, going too fast in a 20.
How we travel to school is important for our health, our safety, and for the environment. This is why Living Streets created WOW, the year-round Walk to School challenge, to encourage more and more children and families to walk to school. WOW is now enjoyed by thousands of schools across the UK.
WOW is a scheme where the children self-report every day how they've travelled to school.
And the children love that responsibility, and they really like to show that they come a healthy way.
Yeah, it's really easy to do because we have our interactive whiteboards.
You have loads of people's names and you have a little picture as well, so you click on yours and there would be options to like walk, park and stride bike.
If you travel to school in a sustainable and active way at least 1 day a week for a month, you are awarded a WOW badge. On average, WOW schools will see a 23% rise in children walking and a 30% reduction in the number of cars pulling up to the school gates.
So one of the main motivators, I think, for our children is the interactive whiteboard, how colourful Living Streets have made the travel tracker.
I don't stop the class, I don't stop teaching and learning to make sure it's done. The children have taken full ownership of that and they love the leadership responsibility of that.
They really want to walk now and they do enjoy doing it, and they're getting the parents in on it as well now.
One day I tell my daughter, okay, let's get into car and let's go to school. She said, no, I lose my badge and I lose my fitness.
It's just healthier for him, and it makes him more road aware. He knows now when he's walking to stop. He knows not to go out in front of cars.
My son's favourite part of school is probably pretending that the seagulls are pterodactyls and they're chasing them and we're on a big mad run. He does that every morning.
The WOW badges are the children's favourite thing. There are 11 to collect over the school year, and each badge features colourful designs created by children. All badges are made from recycled yoghurt pots which were destined for landfill. Living Streets are committed to sustainability and to avoid waste will turn unused badges into brilliant new WOW rollers for schools.
The impact of the WOW initiative on the children has been massive, especially when they get their badges. You can see their happy smiling faces, the fact that they know they've achieved something.
Getting a badge at the end of a month because you can show that you have walked to school has been hugely motivational for them. They're so enthusiastic.
It makes me feel a bit more excited that I might be getting a badge.
I like collecting the badges too because every time you can like show your friends and parents and that.
This one is for the winter.
First we got this in January because it was very cold.
I think she's got the most badges.
My favourite one is the snowman one because I like snowman.
WOW is simple, it's fun, it's educational, and it's happening now, right across the United Kingdom. It is designed to tackle congestion and child inactivity, but its effects are felt far beyond these core functions.
It's a big incentive to get the children healthier and fitter, and that means they learn better, they concentrate better.
Me and my sister, we start to catch up a lot more because we started park and striding. We're going to know each other a lot more.
So the WOW scheme has enabled me to feel more confident about the children inside our school gates and also outside our school gates.
WOW can be tailored to suit your school and your classroom. It is also designed to be affordable with various options for funding based on your school situation.
But the best thing about WOW is it's making the children want to walk, and that is hopefully giving them good habits for life.
I'd absolutely recommend WOW to any head teachers. Get involved. It really has made a big difference to us.
If you want your school to join this national movement of walking children, get in touch with Living Streets via their website.
So that was a summary of the Living Streets programme. I just wanted to touch on some of the highlights that we've had in the last couple of years since launching the WOW programme. We've got 28 schools actively participating, and across those schools we've had a just over 9% increase in the number of children walking to school, 12% increase in park and stride. That's where, you know, you find a sort of a 10-minute walk away from the school, you park and you walk the rest of the distance in, taking that traffic and that congestion and pollution away from the school gates. And a reduction of nearly 20% of driving to the school gates themselves, which I think is a great success. I think the quotes in the video sort of reflected it, but these are quotes from, you know, Kent-based schools. The children are absolutely loving it. They love collecting the badges. The feedback that we receive from the teachers has been that, you know, whilst there is obviously time needed to set up the interactive whiteboards for each classroom that's participating, once they're set up, the children do really take their ownership and responsibility over the scheme, and they really enjoy doing that and collecting the badges. You can find out more. I think someone's going to put the link to the Living Streets webpage in the chat. There is an online calculator where you can work out the costs of signing up for WOW. It depends on how many children you have in your school and how many you know, children you think will potentially be actively travelling and be able to receive the termly badges. We do usually have funding, obviously, as we're just coming to the end of this financial year. I'm still waiting for some funding opportunities, but if funding for next school year becomes available, I'll let Suzie know and she can share that in the newsletters. So if there are places for next academic year, we'll let you know. That's the primary school package. There is a secondary school package. It's called, there's two actually, there's Next Steps and there's Transition Steps. So the Transition Steps is based on using them at a transition day before students start in their new secondary school. So it's a classroom presentation, an activity booklet, a magnet to take home with information attached around how you can start actively travelling to secondary school from that first day. And the other scheme that they run is a Next Steps walking challenge, which rather than the WOW package, which is spread out every week over the year, the Next Steps walking challenge for secondary schools is for Key Stage 3, and it's just 1 week, and the students are given a postcard to note how they've actively travelled, and if they actively travel a certain number of times in that week, they can be in with a chance of winning a Love to Shop voucher. Both packages are £30 per class of 30, so quite reasonably priced. I have included a slide about why secondary schools might need Next Steps, but I think Suzie sort of mentioned it at the start, you know, looking at the congestion, pollution, but also around independence for the Key Stage 3 pupils, encouraging mental and physical health and the benefits that we know can be experienced from those. And I think that's my last slide. It is. That's me. Any questions or points to raise, let me know.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Katie. Lots of information in there. So I'm going to hand over now to Nigel, and he's going to share all about Bikeability.
Good afternoon. Let me just find the page. Are you seeing an email screen or are you seeing Bikeability at the moment?
No, it's your presentation.
Perfect. So once upon a time, I did cycle training when I was a kid in school, in junior school, and it was called cycling proficiency. And it's probably one of the few things I really remember vividly about my junior school education, getting that little triangular badge. But then when you look at it quite closely, all we ever really did was cycled around in the playground, and there'd be road layouts that were chalked on the floor and there'd be cones. And in reality, it wasn't preparing any of us for actually going on the roads with our bikes. So about 17 years ago, 2007, a program was launched called Bikeability, which was all about training children, normally year 5, year 6, how to cycle on the road. So it's very much moving away from the focus on playground. So let me just find the screen. Bear with me one moment. So you're not moving at the moment, are you?
No, it's not moving over.
I love IT. I really love IT. Okay, I think we've cracked it. So the presentation, it's about sort of 5-10 minutes. It's a presentation designed to be given to schools, predominantly year 5 and 6, to actually play to the kids, and it's based on a child's perspective. So bear with me, I'll just run through it. I'll try not to rush through any of the slides. There's not many. Again, this is all designed for the kids to kind of get an understanding of what they're going to get from it. We focus on some of the very positive elements of active or activities rather than just focus on cycling, because it's got so many more health and social aspects to it. Thinking element, the decision making is huge. Some of you may already run Bikeability or have us in to do Bikeability training, and the difference that we see from the start of the course to the end of the course, when we encourage your kids to actually start making independent decisions about their own perspective on a cycle and also about other people's. It's quite incredible the transformation it makes in literally a day and a half of education for them. So there's 3 elements to it. The level 1 will be the bit which was pretty much what cycling proficiency used to be. It's all playground based, and it helps the kids understand about the bike, about themselves, the importance of wearing a helmet and so on. So once the children have achieved the necessary outcomes in level 1, we then take them onto the road for level 2. Now this is the real bones of the whole course, is the level 2. It's about being on roads, and it's progressive. So we start the riders off on very quiet roads where there's going to be minimal interactions with other road users. Once they've achieved basic skills in relation to that, we then start looking to progress them onto busier roads, to busier types of junctions. And again, it's all about getting them to understand the importance of making good decisions and how they interact with other road users, pedestrians, cars, motorbikes, the lot. Then when the children are older, this is normally about year 7, 8, 9, we will offer level 3. And level 3 would be this type of cycling that certainly my parents, when I was a kid, would actually, their toes would curl if we said, we're going to take you to the bridge system in Maidstone, for example, where you've got 3 and 4 lanes of traffic, traffic lights, you've got bus infrastructure, you've got cycle infrastructure. So this is the much more advanced levels, but we can tailor that round the school. So, for example, the school wanted us to come in and actually deliver training that would help children from a certain estate come to school on their bikes. We can actually structure that into our training to give them a real-time and genuine experience about how they can achieve that journey safely and get all the additional benefits of riding a bike. So now in Kent, there are a number of providers around the county. We are probably we are definitely the largest provider given Bikeability. We will come to school, and in normal cases there'll be 2 instructors per day with the group of riders. For larger schools, when there's a larger infrastructure of roads around, sometimes we might have 4 instructors come in and we'll take 2 groups out. But the groups, certainly for the training on the road, will be limited normally to 8 riders, 8 children per 2 instructors. On the playground, we would ordinarily still have 2 instructors, but we'd run up to 12 in one session, which would be a morning. So in reality, the training would look like a morning for each of them to do their level 1, and it would then be a subsequent full day with us doing level 2 on the road. So it's a day and a half abstraction for the majority of kids taking part. So it's come on leaps and bounds now, and starting this year, we now have everything booked via an online app or a web-based app, which will encourage the parents and carers from an early age to get very much involved with this. We will provide via the schools links that they can then have a proper look at Bikeability. They have an online form that they have to complete to give consent for their children to take part. That itself has links to showing them how to fit a helmet properly, the sort of checks they may need to do with the children's bikes to make sure they're safe and roadworthy. And beyond the training, the kids will get a certificate and a badge, and the parents will then be able to have a very detailed look at how their child did it in terms of all the activities they took part in. And certainly, I forgot to mention that the videos are available to the parents from the word go, showing exactly what Bikeability is and breaking down even to how we turn in and out of junctions. The design for that is predominantly to try and encourage parents to perhaps start riding themselves, so they can then take their kids out on roads beyond the course to give them much better activity level as we move forward from the course. It's a short video, it's 2 or 3 minutes. If I click on this, hopefully you'll get sound. Perhaps Suzie, if you let me know if the sound is working. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I get up in the morning and I'm still tired, I look at my bike and I look at the roads. I see adventure. It gives me confidence to take any road, to follow any path in life. Our journeys give us strength, fuel our determination, turn energy into movement, movement into fun. The courage to join the world and say, I'm part of it, part of the flowing current. The courses we take and the roads we share, we respect. The skills and knowledge we have gained, we use to enjoy our journey. The feeling of freedom, speed, power and control. It inspires us to chase our ambitions. Anything is possible, we dream bigger. Together we move, synchronized with everyone and everything around us, in harmony with our bikes and our surroundings. Our journeys can lead us to anywhere, to friendship, to new beginnings, to adventure.
You can see from there, the actual level 2 has got an awful lot of activities that we build into it. Before we go on to the final bits, I just want to sort of emphasize that Bikeability is incredibly inclusive. It's not about passing or failing. Back in the bad old days of cycling proficiency, if you didn't do well enough, you didn't get your badge. Everyone now, all riders get the same products at the end of it. So they all get a badge, they get a certificate, and it's all about giving them skills which will be with them for life. We've delivered training to amputee children. We've delivered training to a blind student. We have quite a lot of students who have hearing impairments. Again, we work around them. As long as the schools work with us to give us plenty of notice, we can accommodate virtually anything. And the impact on each of the children in being able to take part in something is just huge. As an organisation, we delivered this year to about 3,200 kids. Next year, we're planning to increase that to coming on 6,000, 5,700 places that will be predominantly year 6. And we want those kids to have the chance to actually go out and experience what we believe will be lifelong skills for them. We work with schools to remove barriers. The majority of the training is funded through central government, through Active Travel England. So the vast majority of the training costs are free. We also are looking now at opportunities to lend bikes to riders that perhaps come from a background where they can't afford a bike. And we're also introducing balance sessions and learn to ride as well, to try and get the younger kids to be in a position when they get to year 5 and 6, they can take part in the on-road training as well. So in a nutshell, that's what we try and deliver, and that's what we do deliver in the county. This PowerPoint will be made available to you. And again, I would encourage you to show it to the kids to get them interested in this. And in relation to booking, that contact details on there, that is how you can contact us to start arranging our training for your school. And unless there's any questions at this time, that's probably me done, Suzie.
That's great. Thank you very much, Nigel. That was brilliant. So we're now going to move on to opportunities that are available for schools to join in with. So Alessandra is going to share about climate risk assessments and how schools can join in with the pilot that she's starting.
Thank you, Suzie. I'm just going to share my screen. Is everyone able to view this?
Yep, that's perfect.
Perfect, thank you. So hi everyone, thank you for having me here today. So I'm Alessandra Sartori. I work in the KCC Energy and Climate Change team, and I'll be presenting a very brief high-level overview of what adaptation is and how we hope to work with you to include adaptation in your climate action plans. So firstly, what is adaptation? Adaptation is adjusting to climate change and its effects to reduce risk and exploit beneficial opportunities. So rather than reducing our emissions, instead we focus on how we can manage climate hazards such as extreme heat, flooding, severe weather events, and sea level rise, as well as its associated impacts. And so we do this by undertaking a climate risk assessment, which involves identifying the climate risk, its severity and likelihood, and then identifying adaptation measures in order to reduce that risk within an action plan. So the main idea is to figure out what exactly we need to adapt to before we understand how we can actually adapt to it. And just to give a better idea of what climate risk is, it involves the exposed asset, service or community of people to the climate hazard, such as extreme heat. And just to give an idea of what this could be, for example, it could be risk to staff and students' health and well-being from overheating. It could be risk to your physical infrastructure of the building from flooding. It could also be more indirect things such as your supply chain. So when it comes to the food and drink that you could be serving the children. And if these risks are not managed correctly, then they can develop into impacts, which is what we want to try and avoid. So why is adaptation needed? So due to historic emissions and land use change, we are going to be feeling the effects of climate change now and until the rest of the 21st century. And just to give an idea of what this will look like for Kent in particular, we will be experiencing hotter, drier summers, warmer, wetter winters, and sea level rise. Which, as I mentioned before, these could give rise to impacts, especially on your staff, students, but also your school building and grounds. And I just wanted to highlight 2 areas of significance in terms of why adaptation is needed for overheating, given that overheating tends to be an underrepresented risk, and it's something that my team focuses on in particular. So the first being that there is no legally prescribed limit on maximum temperature for school premises. So from my understanding, if a school has to have reach a minimum temperature in order to stay open. But this is not the case when it comes to summer, which can be very, very dangerous. And it's why we need to ensure that schools can appropriately manage extreme heat. And it's particularly dangerous for younger children who it's a lot more difficult for them to regulate their body temperature, or those with a health condition. So that is definitely something that we want to focus on, and also why adaptation is needed. So essentially, we want to work with schools, and we are creating guidance on how schools can independently undertake a climate risk assessment and action plan. And we do aim to publish this a lot more widely in the future. However, before we do this, we want to work with approximately 3 to 5 schools as part of a pilot in order to trial this guidance, so we can ensure it is as effective and as coherent as possible. And so to do this, we want to work with you to understand exactly how your school works and the impacts that you are experiencing, to ensure that it is as suitable as possible. And we are creating a tool, we are creating guidance that is of most benefit to you. That's our main priority. And if you do want to take part, there is no particular criteria as such, especially when it comes to your type of school, as we want to work with a range of different schools, varying in size and location, to ensure that our guidance is applicable to a variety of characteristics. There is a survey that I have produced if you would like to take part. This survey is very short, it's only about 4 or 5 questions, and it's mainly focused on how you've experienced overheating, as I said before, because it's a very underrepresented risk, and we want to ensure that we can help you manage this. So if you would like to take part, please do complete that survey, but we will also be helping you manage other climate hazards and the impacts from these, including flooding, severe weather events, and sea level rise if you are a coastal school. And lastly, just a very quick timeline. So the guidance that I am producing, I aim to finalise this by the end of April, and then we will then be in contact with participating schools in mid-May. So we will have around 2 months to work with schools closely and trial the guidance. And then over summer, we aim to revise this so we can have a fully effective tool for you to use moving forward. If you would like to ask any questions or get in touch, my email address is here. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Alessandra. I'm sure there'll be a number of schools that will be interested in that. So I'm just going to go back to my slides and share a few more opportunities. So I mentioned earlier about the Let's Go Zero Climate Action Advisors. So there are already around 50 schools in Kent that are working with these advisors. It's free for them to sign up, and they're able to get support with their climate action plans. There's then the National Education Nature Park. This is a Department for Education funded scheme, and we now have local advisors in the southeast who are able to support with schools in this area. There is some grant funding, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is just for a very small amount of selected schools, but this is closing towards the end of March. So just a last shout out for any schools that might be part of that list. There's then the Greener School Awards. So we had the presentation for last year's Green School Awards just before Christmas, and the awards are now open for the next round. And Social Enterprise Kent are also running. So on the same webpage link, you'll see that they're also running a Green STEM showcase, and that will be on the 2nd of July 2025. There's then the Wilder Kent Awards, which are run by the Kent Wildlife Trust, and these are open for schools to apply for now. Then the crazy cat that's on the screen at the side there, that's HypnoCat, and that's part of a project that I'm working on with a couple of colleagues within KCC, funded by a Material Focus, and that is the E-Waste Warriors project. I'll share a little bit more about that in a minute. And then finally, if you share your climate action plans with myself, with Greener Kent Schools, then you can use the logo. And I now have a competition running where any school that has already sent in their climate action plan and any that sends them in for, towards the end of the academic year will be eligible for a competition entry for a British recycled plastic picnic table. So I will be sharing information of that in my next newsletter. So the e-waste warriors project that I mentioned, this is funded by Material Focus Innovation Fund. We've got £50,000 of funding to run a 1-year project, and there will be 5 to 6 4-week mini cluster projects which will be run across localized area. Each of those clusters will have 2 to 3 secondaries and 1 to 3 primary schools in them, running up to a maximum of 5 to 6 schools. And then within the project, 1 year group will, from each school, will have the opportunity to receive team repair engagement sessions. So all schools will receive the Recycle Your Electricals branded communications, and so we're aiming to work with about 24 schools in total, and looking for a reach of up to 18,000 students and 10 to 12,000 households. We also have targets of how much we're trying to recycle and how many items we're aiming to get repaired within the project. So the 4-week programme that will run within a school starts with a launch assembly, and 1 recycling bin and 1 repair bin would be delivered to the school for the collection of the e-waste. Within the next couple of weeks, the school would then run the team repair sessions and would continue to collect the e-waste. In week 3 or 4, there'd then be a repair cafe event in one of those cluster schools, but all the schools would work together on that. So that would run, and there'd be the opportunity for the communities to bring in their items to be repaired. And then at the end, a final push to get as much e-waste collected for recycling or repair, and then a collation of those results with a competition. So team repair have these kits. So this one is a games console kit. That's the one we've chosen to use within our project. The children receive a faulty gadget, and there's 3 faults that they have to repair within that. It has really good links to the electronics curriculum and learning about circuits. So it's all about exploring real science and finding those repair skills and really sparking that curiosity. I also mentioned about the Nature Park grants. So there are a total of 39 schools within the KCC area who are eligible for £10,000 Department for Education Nature Park grants. 26 were eligible in the previous academic year, and 10 received those grants. So there were 16 who didn't apply, and then they're eligible for the 10,000 this year, and then an additional 13 schools were announced in November. And this fund is for Greater Green Interventions, grassland or pond restoration. This closes at 5 p.m. on the Thursday, the 27th of March. So the deadline is coming up soon. And these are the schools that, so on the left are the ones that were outstanding from the original schools that were eligible. And then on the right, the schools that have been added in across Dartford, Maidstone, Sevenoaks and Tunbridge. So we're now at a point for Q&A. Joe, have we got any questions? I can see lots of the links that you've shared, but have we got any questions that have come up in the chat or in the Q&A?
Not in the Q&A tab, and we haven't had any in the chat other than one about count your carbon, but that's been answered. So yeah,
lovely. Okay, so if anyone does have any questions for any of the presenters today, so either email myself or use the links that have been shared. And so just a final recap. So 5 key actions to take away from today. So consider which travel themed actions you'd like to take into your climate action plan. Conduct a travel audit and review what support you could get from KCC with that. Then review the other opportunities that have been shared that are available for your schools and whether you want to sign up to any of those, depending on eligibility. Feel free to book an advice slot with myself. And then finally, if you share your climate action plan, as I said, then I can send you through the Greener Kent Schools logo and add you into the competition entries. So just a final thank you. Thank you to everyone who's joined along today, and thank you to the presenters, to Iona, Katie, Nigel and Alessandra, and also to my colleague Joe, who's been helping in the background and making sure it's all smooth running and adding all the links. So I'll be sharing the recording, the slides and the links, but please feel free to email me or to ask me any questions that you have at all. Thank you very much.